Traps can be a fundamental part of any dungeon, which is why they expanded the rules and the different types of traps you can use in Xanathar's Guide to Everything.
So it started with my own campaign. I was running a dungeon that is infested with traps, and I wanted them to be have a bit more meat to them. They weren't just things that triggered and were done, but things that were more like puzzles to avoid and work around. And the current traps, which I designed the rules for, so I can freely criticize them. It's okay, I'm criticizing myself. I just found the rules to be too simple. There were not enough options and features within them to make the sort of concept of an ongoing trap really work. So the idea behind it was, I'll use an example trap, which I think is in the book, but definitely was in my campaign. It's this long hallway that slopes down, and at the base there's a tomb. And when you open the tomb and go in, a boulder drops down and starts rolling down the slope. But when it gets to the bottom, a dimension door opens up that it passes through and it pops back out of the top. So it's just endlessly rolling. So the idea is that obviously that's a trap. If you stand in front of the boulder and get smacked, you take a bunch of damage. But it's also a puzzle in that the players are now trapped in the room at the bottom of that slope, and they have to figure out, how do we want to get out? They can spend some time looking at the trap and figuring out how it works, but then they have to come up with a plan to figure out what can we do to avoid taking damage from this thing. And I had a dungeon where there was like 4 or 5 traps like that. It's one of the key features of it. And it was really fun in play, and I found the stuff I worked up to make that work, for me to track it during the game, seemed to work pretty well. And if I wasn't happy with the trap rules, how many DMs out there were unhappy with them too? So that's really where that came into play. And it play tested really well, so that was really good to see. I think it was the kind of thing where either people were straining against the existing rules, or once they saw an expansion to it, they recognized, oh, that's going to be fun to use in my campaign, so I want to pick it up and start running with it. I think the best way to think of it is to think of it as like a puzzle. You want to set the players up in a situation that's very dangerous, but the nice thing with a trap is, since it isn't a monster, it's not aggressive, it doesn't chase after the players. It gives them a chance to consider their options first and come up with a plan, and then experiment with a trap and try to figure out a way around it. You can also run these traps as part of if you're fighting monsters, the trap might go off and add even more chaos to a battle. But it's really, that's what I think, it's a puzzle that has a bit of bite to it, because if you guess wrong or come up with a bad plan, you take damage, or you could lose your character. So it gives a bit more bite to the typical puzzle, which just might be, oh, how do we figure this out to open the treasure chest, or to continue down this open this door and keep going. Yeah, it has a full system for how to think of it conceptually, how to manage it during the game, how to run it, and then how to come up with stats for it based on the character's level. But you can improv anything, but I think it's good to really understand how the trap works, because especially if you intend it as a puzzle, you need to understand kind of how it basically functions, so then you can understand if the player's ideas make any sense, and you can present it in a way that's consistent and logical, so the players can really understand what's going on.
Why do you enjoy them so much? Because I get the sense you really like them.
No, it's really fun because I think it adds that sense of a puzzle solving to the game, without it just being like, okay, fill in this blank and then you get to move on. It's more dynamic, and it allows players to make mistakes that aren't just like, oh, you guessed wrong, so nothing happens. Like, it's dynamic. Everything it changes every round, or presents a slightly different barrier to progress based on what you've tried and what you're thinking of trying.
You can find the extended information on traps in Xanathar's Guide to Everything. That book is available on dndbeyond.com. I'm Todd Kenrick. Thank you for watching.